Hi friends, so I just finished filming a little makeup video. So I am going to wash this off before I begin the rest of this video because in case anyone here sees me, I don't want them to see me. But I had a blast. That was a hoot. So I'm feeling like great, and I'm very excited because I'm going to begin working on my writing project again. And yesterday I wrote 300 words in what was essentially just like a scene, but what I think it could really work for is a sequel to my favorite book that I've ever written, which was the last novel that I queried, which was my 5th novel 3 novels ago. I don't know if anybody can keep up with that, but so it seems illogical to try to write a sequel, and I have no plans on trying to write, a book right now. My plan is, well, first of all, it just felt great. It felt so good to be able to write and feel good about it. Last night when I wrote those 300 words, I just felt like, dang, this is what writing feels like. So that was wonderful. I have no intention right now of starting the sequel, but my intention is I found 10 new literary agents that I can try to submit that novel to. Not agencies, because most of the agencies have a no from one means a no from all policy. So it has been, I started querying that novel in 2021. So it has been many a year. And I believe I sent my last query in 2023 and then I gave up. But I have found, and I queried, I don't even know, 200 maybe people. You really stopped counting after so long. But I do have a list of all the people I sent them to. It's just not numbered anymore. But I found 10 new agents to submit that book to. And I want to submit it. Because I do love that. I just want to feel like I didn't give up. I did as much as I could possibly do. And 10 agents, obviously, that's like a no number amount of agents to submit to. But my plan, what I'm going to do in this video is read that novel. I'm not going to start submitting yet, but because what ended up happening was, because you might be like, well, you submitted to so many agents and nobody wanted it, maybe your pitch is bad. The pitch wasn't the problem because I had like a 35%, maybe, something like that, like a request rate of agents that would get my pitch and then want to read the entire manuscript. So the pitch wasn't the problem, it was the manuscript that nobody wanted. So what ended up happening was a lot of the agents would say, this is not right for me for this specific reason. And then in between submitting all that time, because I didn't submit obviously to 200 people all at once. That would be too many people. So I submitted over the course of like 2 years, and I would take the feedback that I would get from all of these rejections. And then I got to revise and resubmit, which ended up with massive changes that also ultimately ended in rejection. But the reason I stopped submitting the story was because I sort of started feeling like it was no longer mine, and it no longer felt like the story I wanted it to be. It got so muddied and lost amid all of those suggestions for revision that I took and revised. So my plan now, today, and for the next couple of days in this video is to read that story. Just read it as a story and then feel what feels wrong and what feels like forced in, and try to pull back on some of that and maybe rework in some of my original intended voice and plot momentum in order to make it feel more like the story that I wanted it to be. Because a lot of the revisions that I did made the story stronger, and I could definitely see, oh yeah, that's definitely what this story needed. But then just adding so many different opinions from so many different agents, the story just ended up feeling muddied. And so I'd like to try to, clear the waters a little bit and unmuddy it before I begin submitting to these next 10 agents. And probably final 10 agents. I literally scoured the interwebs looking for agents that I had not submitted to or not submitted to their agency if their agency has a no from one is no for all policy, which a lot of the agencies do. So 10 agents that I'm going to submit to someday. I probably submit them 2 at a time, but I'm feeling just good about it. I'm feeling good overall. I'm feeling just excellent. So that's what we're going to do. Next time you see me, it's probably going to be the same day, but I'm going to be looking a lot less glamorous because I'm going to wash this off. so that no one here has to see me. But even though this is what I was talking about in that last video, when I have so much fun doing the makeup, even if it's bad, even though it's bad and it's kind of like, ooh, what did you do to her makeup? It's still so fun to do, and that is just a huge relief to me, and it gives me endorphins. So, thanks for joining me. I'm very excited to begin reading this story. Okay, so it's the same day. I just took the makeup off, but I did remember that like 4 or 5 months ago, during one of the depths of darkness when I was struggling with my writing for so long, I did reread the first 100 pages of this manuscript that I'm considering querying again. And I was going back and forth, like, should I reread those again? And I think I'm just gonna read them again, just to get the full experience. So that's what we're gonna do. Okay, so it is the next day. I put the red lips back on just because I love them. No one will ever see this. I'm gonna take them off as soon as I film this little clip, but I just don't want to waste the color because I love it so much. But I remember from a few months ago when I read the first 100 pages of this novel that I loved the first 100 pages of this novel. And I'm still finding that very much to be true. There are definitely just like maybe 2 moments so far where I feel the plot kind of forcing its way into the prose that came from revisions that I had implemented after getting feedback from various agents. And I know that becomes a much, much, much bigger problem in the last 2/3 of the novel. The novel's about 300 words long at the moment. So the first 100 pages so far, I remember this from the last time I read it, the first 100 pages, and I'm finding it again to be true, whereas for the most part, the story is exactly as I had intended it to be. It's like very interpersonal and like lyrical and lush with kind of a backdrop of plot, and mainly a majority of the feedback that I got was it needs more plot in order for this to be pitched as a mystery, because it is a mystery. There is a mystery. It's just kind of happening, over top of a lush interpersonal type of story. And the first 100 pages are much more, lyrical and interpersonal. And then I remember the majority of the revisions, suggested revisions that I ended up adding to the story are in the final 200 pages. So I have not gotten to that part yet. And I'm imagining when I start reading through, I'm not going to be making changes right now. I'm literally just reading. But I think I'm going to make note in the margin of places where the story starts to feel like it's drifting too far away from my original lush lyrical voice that I wanted the story to be in, because it's possible that this is just not a marketable story because it is like a mystery over top or like even underneath of like a lush sort of interpersonal type of story. And maybe that's just not something people want. Maybe people either want, lush lyrical interpersonal story or a mystery, but they don't like it when it's both. That's a possibility. Part of me still kind of flickers around with the idea that maybe someday I could self-publish this novel, because I just really like it, and maybe nobody else would like it, but I'm starting to have this like tiny little feeling of like maybe that's okay. Like maybe it's okay if I write and I'm the only one who loves it. I don't know. I mean, obviously it would be nice if other people would enjoy it too, but like if it's not marketable enough that it like doesn't want to be traditionally published, I am flickering around with the idea of maybe potentially someday in the far distant future, perhaps considering self-publishing it, because I still really like it. And I haven't gotten to obviously the final 200 pages where I started like really heavily putting in all of the editorial feedback from the agents and like really amping up the mystery and like putting the plot over top of, like, instead of, like deleting areas of lyricism in order to add more plot. I haven't got to that part yet, so this final 2/3 of the story could be like really mismatched right now. It still need a lot of like heavy work in order to like get it to a place where I feel like the voice is consistent throughout, and also like the story that I want to be telling rather than like purely a marketable story, which I think is kind of what I was turning it into after the final many rejections and feedback that I had gotten from querying this story, especially after that revise and resubmit. The revise and resubmit and like a lot of the feedback made the story stronger, but it also made me add like a lot of plot that I didn't necessarily want to be adding. So I remember the story just feeling kind of mismatched at the end and like distant from me and like what my intention was. And so that part is probably going to need a lot of work and like a lot of smoothing and like a lot of finding itself as a story and not worrying so much about whether or not it's super marketable. Because maybe I could just write it that way, the way that feels true to the story and like my intentions for the story, and then consider self publishing it. I don't know if people view that as like a cop out. I don't know if I'm supposed to be trying to make it as marketable as possible. I haven't decided anything yet, obviously. I'm just reading. But I remember from the last time I read the first 100 words, the first 100 pages, the first 100 pages maintained a lot of my intended voice. And like the literary agents must have liked it at least a little bit because so many of them wanted to read the rest of the manuscript. And then so many of them rejected it, and a lot of them rejected it just saying, this isn't right for me, good luck. But a lot of them also said, the plot is not enough. There's not enough plot points, and we need more. And I would try to keep putting in more and more and more, depending on the feedback that I would get from all the different agents, until the story started feeling like out of control and like not mine anymore. So it's possible I'll need to rein those plot points back in and like soften them somehow, remove them, or revert back to what it used to be. I don't know. And like make it less marketable but more mine. Is that a bad idea? I don't know. We will see how I feel once I read those parts of the book. But for now, I'm gonna again wash my face and get back to reading. Because for now, so far in the first 100 pages, as expected, I still really love it. There are definitely some moments where I can feel my past self had like input some plot points that didn't necessarily want to be there, but for the most part, the first 100 pages are still that lush, lyrical, interpersonal story that I had originally intended to write, with the backdrop of mystery. The mystery is there the whole time, it's just more of a backdrop rather than like, this is a mystery. And maybe that's just not what people want to read. I don't know. But yeah, so far, that's the update. Okay, so it is a few days after I last spoke to you. It's so funny because you are the only one who ever sees me in makeup like this, and yet I think I've been wearing it for like almost every single clip in this video. I just put it on and then take it immediately off, but it still feels just good and like secret and fun, and I've been enjoying it. But I was expecting to read through that. I read through the entire thing, beginning to end, and I was expecting to mark in the margins places that needed to be smoothed and like integrated, but I literally left no comments in the margins. First of all, there were probably like, I would say 2 or 3 places that probably could be smoothed, but I didn't even feel the need to mark them in the margins because I was just in it. I was just in the story, just reading, having a good time, which felt excellent. So my plan for querying had always been to not begin sending to these 10 agents that I found until at least February, so I have like several months. The reason being, my cat is pawing at my door. The reason being because they always say you're not supposed to query at the end of the year when it's really busy for literary agents, and you're also not supposed to query in January because like everybody has a New Year's resolution of like, I'm gonna get my book published, and so everybody's querying in January. And so like I have always heard that you're supposed to wait until that like enthusiasm tapers off and begin querying in February, which was always my plan. So I definitely still have time to like go back into those 2 or 3 places and like consider if I would need to smooth them out. But while I was reading, I remembered that after the rejection for my revise and resubmit, I had actually gone back in. I actually had a video about this. I had gone back in and removed a subplot that I had really liked, but that I felt was kind of muddying up the story. And when I did that, I think I somehow like magically was able to weave in all of the revisions I had done for the revise and resubmit with the story. And so the story, like while I was reading it this time, it felt so much less muddied than I remembered it being because I had removed that subplot. That was a subplot that had always been in the story. It wasn't one I had added in revision from agent feedback, but it was one I always liked. But then I sort of started feeling like maybe it was muddying up the story a little bit because I had added several subplots in during revisions based on agent feedback, and so I started feeling like the story was getting too muddied, and one of the subplots needed to be removed. I don't know if you can hear my cat rustling, but the subplot I decided to remove was one that wasn't part of the mystery. It was one of the like more character-focused subplots, and I had really liked it. But I removed it from the story and then wove the story back together again. And I feel like the story just read so smoothly. Like, part of me was thinking like I could see how people could read it and still feel like it's perhaps a little too muddied. Which is interesting because I remember one of the feedback I got from like several different agents was that it needed more subplots, like it was too focused. I don't even know. That was so long ago, I don't even remember all the things that they said. But when I was reading this story now over these last couple of days, it just felt like right and like I didn't want to be making changes, which is interesting. And I've had two realizations for how this might help me moving forward with my other writing projects. First being one of the reasons that working on my other projects, like my magical mystery, has been so hard is because the story in my head is not at all the story that's on the page. And for this story that I was just reading, the story in my head is precisely the story that's on the page, and I just love it. And like, I think I've almost like come to terms with the fact that like maybe I'm the only one who enjoys it, and like maybe it's not a marketable book, and maybe that's why it keeps being rejected. But I still don't want to make changes to it because I love it just the way that it is. And I need to get to a place where I feel like my magical mystery is A, the story in my head is what I'm reading on paper, and B, I feel like in order to get there, I have to stop trying to make it good and just try to make it a story that I enjoy, because that was how I finished this story. That was how I wrote it originally. And even though like it got a ton of like feedback that I wove in from the literary agents, and then it felt muddy, and then I had to remove subplot and weave it all back together. Even though it went through all of that, reading over it now, it still is just this story that I love. And like I was thinking, maybe this isn't the most marketable story, and maybe no one else on the earth would love this story the way that I love it, but that's okay. And in order to finish writing a book, I need to have that feeling. I need to have the feeling of I'm doing this because I enjoy it. I think I feel so much pressure when I'm writing to make it be good that I just get so frozen and stuck. And I'm especially frozen and stuck because the story in my head for my magical mystery is not the story on the page. So not only is it not good, but I also don't like it. With this story, I don't know if it's good. I mean, it had a lot of interest, but then also everything always ended in rejection. So I don't know if it's actually good or if I'm the only one who likes it. But I feel like the important thing is that I like it. And I need to be able to, rework my mindset when I'm working on my other stories so that I'm thinking, I don't need to be making this good. I just need to be writing the story that I want to write. And I've had that like crisp realization while I was reading this story. I'm not sure how easy it will be to actually put that into practice, because I think it was easier while I was reading this story because the story in my head is the story on the page, and so I'm able to be like, maybe this isn't a good story, but I still really love it. But for my magical mystery, the story in my head is not the story on the page, and also I don't like it. So there's not really anything like ground me in like motivation with that story. And so I need to like reorient how I'm thinking about the story and get away from trying to make it good and just try to write something that I enjoy. That's gonna be what I need to do. So going forward, what I was gonna do was work on this story and like smoothing it out and working in whatever revisions I felt it needed. And like maybe there are 2 or 3 places that could be smooth, but all in all, I don't think that's what I'm gonna do because I just love it. I love it so much. I didn't even write any comments in the margins, and I have until February until I'm gonna start submitting again. So I have time to like go back in and like see if I even really want to smooth out those areas. I don't know. So I don't know what I'm gonna do next, but so far for this read through of this story, it went extremely well, and I'm pleased. I'm very pleased. Like I finished reading and I'm like, dang, that's a good book. I'm glad I read that. And then I'm like, well, dang, I'm glad I wrote that. And so even if no one ever else likes it, I'm still really glad that I wrote it because I really like it. And I need to hold on to that feeling, and I need to be able to transfer that feeling to my other writing projects so that I can actually start writing again, because I have been so stuck, as you know, for like years. But all in all, this has gone very well, and I'm feeling good. I am feeling good.